The cargo ship Morningstar drifted quietly through deep space, carrying crates of minerals and machinery from one colony to another. Most of the crew were used to long, silent journeys with nothing exciting ever happening, but this trip was different. Because of the new passenger, she was a small alien girl with skin pale like moonlight and eyes that shimmered silver when the lights hit them. She had been picked up from a remote station, and no one knew much about her, except that she paid for her travel in rare metals. Jack, the young mechanic, was the first to really notice her. She wandered the corridors like she was exploring a new world, touching every panel and staring at the engines with childlike curiosity. Sometimes she would follow him into the maintenance bay just to watch him work. She didn't speak much, only a few broken words of trade language. But she had a strange habit of leaning close and pretending to bite his arm before giggling softly. Jack thought it was just her way of joking. One quiet shift in the engine room. Jack was working on a coolant leak when she appeared again. She tilted her head at him, smiling in that quiet, strange way. She came close, reached out, and gently bit his forearm like she always did, but this time her teeth broke the skin. Jack flinched and laughed nervously, telling her she was getting too rough, but then something felt wrong. A strange coldness spread from the bite through his arm, moving quickly toward his chest. His vision blurred for a second, and the sound of the humming engine seemed to fade into a low, slow heartbeat that did not feel like his own. He pulled back, but she held his wrist, eyes wide, as if she had made a terrible mistake. Her lips moved. As she whispered something in her own language, words he couldn't understand but that carried an edge of fear. By the time he stumbled to the medbay, the cold sensation had started to fade, but his head felt heavy and his thoughts were slow. The ship's medic scanned him twice and frowned when the results came back clear. No infection, no toxin, no foreign chemical in his blood. The medic suggested it might be an allergic reaction and gave him a small patch to wear. Jack didn't believe it. He knew something had happened when she bit him. The alien girl was standing outside the medbay door when he left, her silver eyes following him like she was guarding him from something. Over the next day, strange things began to happen. When Jack passed her in the corridors, he thought he could hear a faint whispering sound. It was never loud enough to understand, but it was there, just at the edge of hearing. At first he thought it was her trying to talk softly, but the sound came even when her mouth was closed. The whispers grew clearer when she was closer to him and faded when she walked away. Jack tried to tell himself it was nothing, maybe just the sound of the ventilation system. But deep down he knew it wasn't. That night while he worked alone in the maintenance bay, the girl appeared again. She didn't speak, just watched him. Quietly from the shadows, Jack tried to focus on fixing a broken panel, but kept glancing at her. Something about the way she stood perfectly still made his skin crawl. He bent to pick up a tool and caught sight of her reflection in the polished metal panel. His chest tightened. In the reflection, her mouth was open wider than should have been possible, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth, glistening with thick black fluid that dripped slowly to the floor. He spun around in shock, but when he looked at her directly, her face was back to normal, and she was smiling that small, strange smile. Jack's heartbeat thudded in his ears as the whispers rose again, stronger than before, and this time they almost sounded like his own name. Jack couldn't sleep that night no matter how hard he tried. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of her reflection came back, those impossible teeth and that dark, dripping fluid. He told himself it had to be a trick of the light or maybe his own tired mind playing games after a long shift. Still, when he finally drifted off, he woke to find himself sitting upright on his bed with his hands clenched so tight his nails had dug into his palms. The whispering sound was still there, faint but steady, and it felt like it was coming from inside his own head now. When he stepped out into the dimly lit corridor, the alien girl was there, standing silently as if she had been waiting for him. She stepped closer, and in her broken trade language said she could not control it, that something inside her was calling to him. She used the word hunger. Jack didn't like the way she said it, like it was something alive. Over the next few hours, Jack began to notice something else. The small wound on his arm, where she had bitten him, was already almost gone, healing far faster than it should. By midday, it had closed completely, leaving behind only a faint mark, like a scar that didn't belong there. He also felt stronger, more alert, but there was a restless energy in him that made it hard to stay still. The ship's captain mentioned that the navigation system was logging minor power drains at night, but no one could trace the source. Jack kept quiet, even though he'd heard the soft hum of systems powering on when he walked the halls during his sleepless nights. The alien girl kept close to him now, almost never more than a few steps away. Yet she avoided the captain and the senior crew entirely. When they passed in the corridors, she would turn her face down or slip into another room.
Ow.
She seemed afraid of them, but with Jack, she stayed near, her silver eyes always watching. He tried to get her to explain, but her words were broken and mixed with her own language. Half the time she stopped herself before saying too much. He began to wonder if she was hiding something not just from him but from everyone. Night, while checking a loose connector near the cargo bay, Jack felt the whispering grow louder, almost like a song. His hands trembled as he worked, and the world around him seemed to fade. He could feel a gentle pull, as if something beyond the ship was calling him, shook it off and tried to focus. But by the time he finished, he was no longer in the cargo bay. He was standing at the main airlock, staring out at the empty darkness of space through the small window. The airlock control panel was lit and ready, one button away from opening the doors. His breath came in short bursts as he tried to remember walking there, but there was nothing, just a blank gap in his memory. A hand grabbed his arm and pulled him back sharply. It was her. The alien girl's eyes were glowing faintly in the dim emergency light, silver turning almost white. She looked frightened, and in a low voice she told him not to listen, not to follow. Jack's skin went cold. She was no longer pretending to bite or play. There was no laugh, no joke, only fear, and the whispering inside his head that refused to stop. Jack spent the next day in a fog, his mind weighed down by the memory of the airlock. He couldn't stop thinking about how close he had been to opening it. How easy it would have been to step out into the freezing void without even realizing what he was doing. He told no one, except the alien girl, though she didn't seem surprised. Instead, she told him again in her halting words not to listen to the voices. She said they were older than her people, and they would not stop until they had him. Jack wanted to press her for answers, but every time he tried, she would lower her eyes and fall silent, as if even speaking about it would make things worse. That evening, while working on the communication array, Jack came across something unusual. The receiver kept picking up a strange, repeating signal, soft, pulsing, steady. It didn't sound like static or ship chatter. Out of curiosity, he checked the timing of the pulses and froze when he realized it matched the beat of his own heart. Exactly. His first thought was that it was some kind of interference from his tools, but the longer he listened, the more certain he became that it wasn't random at all. The signal felt personal, like it was aimed directly at him, the alien. Girl happened to be passing by the maintenance station when the signal played over the console speaker. The moment she heard it, her face drained of color. She rushed forward, slamming her palm on the console and shutting it off.
Oh.
Her eyes were wide, and in a voice that trembled, she told him it was the call. When Jack asked what call, she said it was how they found their own, the marked ones. She looked at his arm when she said it, at the faint scar where she had bitten him. Jack's chest tightened as the truth began to form in his mind. The bite hadn't been an accident. He tried to ask more, but the ship's captain's voice came over the comm, demanding to know why their course had shifted. Jack checked the navigation system and saw that it was no longer following the plotted route to the next colony. Instead, the ship was already veering toward a set of coordinates in deep space. The location wasn't on any chart, just empty void. But when Jack looked at the numbers on the screen, strange certainty settled over him. He knew exactly where those coordinates led. He didn't know how, but he could almost picture the place. A gray, dead moon with a surface cracked like dry earth, and something beneath it waiting for him. The alien girl pulled him aside, speaking quickly in her broken mix of languages. Told him her homeworld had been destroyed by the same things that were calling to him. She said she was not like them, but they would not care. If the ship reached that place, they would take him and never give him back. Jack wanted to believe her, but part of him felt the pull growing stronger with every passing hour, like a rope. Tied around his chest, slowly dragging him forward, the captain ordered a manual override to return the ship to its original route. But within minutes, the system changed course again, by itself. The crew argued about whether it was sabotage or a malfunction, but Jack didn't say a word. Deep down, he knew it wasn't either. Something else was guiding the ships, something that had nothing to do with electronics or programming. He didn't tell anyone that every time the navigation shifted, he could feel his heart beating in sync with that strange signal, faster now. Urging him onward, the Morning Star finally dropped out of FTL, and Jack found himself staring out the viewport at the gray moon from his vision. Its surface was dull and lifeless, but as the ship drifted closer, he noticed faint glimmers moving along the crack-stainy cold lights that seemed to watch the ship as it approached. A young girl stood beside him, her voice barely a whisper. As she said the name of the place in her own language, Jack didn't understand the word, but the shiver it sent down his spine told him he didn't need to. The moment the Morning Star entered orbit above the dead moon, an unnatural stillness filled the ship. At first, Jack thought it was just his imagination. The way the engine's hum seemed softer, almost muffled. Then the whispers began again. Not faint and distant this time, but clear, as if dozens of voices were speaking directly into his ears. They overlapped in strange rhythms, some low and slow, others sharp and quick, all weaving together into a language he shouldn't have understood yet. Somehow he did. The words slid into his mind like they belonged there, calling him by name, telling him to come home. It didn't take long for the rest of the crew to notice something was wrong. The navigator snapped at the captain over a small mistake. Two. Engineers nearly came to blows over a misplaced tool. Even the medic, usually calm and quiet, slammed a locker door hard enough to dent it. Their tempers were short, their eyes unfocused. And every so often they would pause mid-sentence, as if listening to something only they could hear. Jack realized with dread that the voices were in their heads too. But for him, the words were clear, and that made them far more dangerous. The alien girl found him in the lower corridor, her silver eyes bright with urgency. She told him the moon was a nest, a place where her kind had been born long before she existed. The ones calling to him were the old brood, and because of her bite, they now saw him as one of their own. They wouldn't harm him yet, but they would never stop pulling him toward them. She said he was marked now, bound to them, until he stepped into their ground. Jack felt a deep unease, but also a strange, almost comforting pull, as if he truly did belong down there. The captain, alarmed by the crew's erratic behavior, ordered the ship to keep its distance from the surface. But Jack noticed the navigation. Thrusters firing again without input, nudging them closer to a landing vector. When the captain tried to lock down manual controls, the ship's systems began to glitch. Lights flickered, doors slid open and shut at random, and the temperature dropped several degrees. Jack's breath fogged in the air, and he swore he could see faint shapes moving in the corner of his vision, disappearing whenever he turned his head. That night, Jack woke to find himself in the corridor again. He had no memory of leaving his quarters. The alien girl stood at the far end, silently watching. When she turned away, he followed without thinking. They moved through the dim halls until they reached the main hangar. The cargo shuttle was already powered on, ramp lowered, waiting for him. Max. Jack's mind screamed at him to stop, but his body kept moving forward. The girl didn't try to stop him this time. Instead, she stepped into the shuttle with him, her expression unreadable. The next thing Jack knew, the shuttle was descending toward the moon. The closer they came, the louder the voices grew, now rising in a chant that seemed to shake the air. When they touched down on the cracked gray surface, the ground seemed to breathe beneath his feet. The alien girl led him toward a wide fissure in the earth, and as they approached, a dim blue glow spilled upward from the depths. Jack looked down and thousands of eyes stared back at him from the darkness. They were small and round, each glowing faintly, and they did not blink. Chant stopped all at once, and in the silence, Jack felt them waiting. Jack's boots crunched on the brittle surface as he followed the alien girl into the fissure. The air grew colder the deeper they went, yet the blue light below grew brighter, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. The voices returned, no longer scattered, and chaotic but unified, speaking as one. They called his name with a calm certainty, as if they had always known him. His mind felt strangely clear now, the earlier fear replaced by an almost peaceful sense of belonging. Each step he took felt right, as if he was walking toward something he had been missing his whole life. When they reached the chamber, Jack stopped in awe. It was massive, stretching farther than the light could reach. The walls lined with strange shapes that looked like cocoons woven from dark, glistening strands. The floor was crowded with figures, creatures shaped vaguely like the alien girl, but taller, their limbs longer, their eyes brighter. They surrounded him in silence, their gazes fixed on him. Then, one by one, they lowered themselves to their knees. Jack's pulse quickened. They weren't going to attack him. They were bowing. The figure stepped forward, taller than all the others, its silver eyes ancient and heavy with knowledge. When it spoke, its voice wasn't a sound, but a presence inside his head. It called him the chosen host, telling him that the mark on his arm carried more than a wound, carried their memory, their history, their hunger. Through it, he now belonged to the hive, and the hive belonged to him. Images flashed. In his mind, vast fleets moving through the stars, worlds falling silent beneath a shadow, the endless reach of a will that could not be stopped. The alien girl moved to his side, speaking quietly so only he could hear. She told him she had bitten him to mark him before the hive chose someone worse, someone who would use this power without mercy. She said she had risked everything to bring him here, because only he could make the choice to guide them or destroy them. Thoughts swirled. The hive's voice promised him everything: knowledge of the stars, the strength to conquer or defend, the ability to shape the galaxy itself. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an invitation. But before Jack could answer, the voice of the Morning Star's captain crackled through his cum, strained and urgent. Jack, the crew is dying. Whatever's down there, it's killing them. Decide now. The words snapped him back, pulling his mind out of the warm embrace of the hive's call. He looked at the alien girl, then at the thousands of glowing eyes surrounding him. The chamber was silent again, waiting for him to speak. He realized in that moment that whatever choice he made would not just decide the fate of the crew, but something far greater. Jack stood frozen in the center of the chamber, the air heavy with silence. The alien girl's eyes searched his, waiting for his answer, but the hive's voice filled his head again, smooth and tempting. It promised him power beyond imagining, ability to see every star in the galaxy at once, to command armies without ever leaving this place, to live for centuries while others faded away. It showed him visions of wars won before they began, enemies bowing without a fight, entire worlds reshaped to his will. The offer was intoxicating, and for a moment Jack felt himself leaning toward it. Then the captain's voice came again, weaker this time. Jack.
Out.
We're losing them. In that instant, the images of power shattered, replaced by flashes of the Crutha navigator, who had once shared his rations on a long haul, the medic who patched him up after a turbine accident, the engineers who laughed with him during boring maintenance shifts. They were more than shipmates. They were his people. And the hive, for all its promises, saw them only as prey. Jack took a slow breath and turned to the alien girl. She didn't try to persuade him either way. She only nodded, as if she already knew the choice he was about to make. Closing his eyes, Jack reached into the strange connection that had been growing since the bite. He felt the hive all around him, each mind like a spark in a vast network of light. He reached deeper, searching for the core, and when he found it, he gave the only command he could live with: collapse. The reaction was instant. The chamber trembled, the cocoon splitting open to release clouds of black dust. The creatures screamed, their glowing eyes flaring once before winking out forever. The walls cracked and the blue light dimmed. Jack felt the connection tear apart, like a rope snapping in his chest. The alien girl staggered beside him, her breathing ragged. He caught her before she fell, but her skin was already turning pale, her eyes losing their silver glow. She whispered something in her language as soft, gentle sound, and then her body dissolved into a swirl of gray dust that slipped through his fingers and vanished. Jack stumbled through the collapsing tunnels, barely reaching the surface before the ground split open. The fissure closed with a deafening roar, sealing whatever remained of the hive deep underground. He didn't remember getting back to the shuttle, only the rush of rejoining the Morning Star and seeing the crew slowly come back to themselves, dazed but alive. The captain asked him what happened down there, but Jack only said it was over. Weeks later, during a quiet voyage between systems, Jack sat alone in the med bay, idly checking the scanner on his arm. The wound from the bite was gone, but the scar remained. As he ran the scanner over it, a faint blip appeared on the monitor, steady, rhythmic, familiar. Jack stared at it for a long moment before turning the device off. He left the med bay, without a word, but as he walked down the empty corridor, he swore he could hear, far away and almost lost in the silence, a single whisper calling his name.